second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today is Tuesday, March the 30th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that will put you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael just a few moments to get dialed in. I'll invite you to go to our website, whyagain.org, WHYAGAIN.org. And you can click on the Start Here in the upper left corner or the bullseye in the middle of the page. Both of those take you to the same place, and that's where you'll find the tools to begin using the tools. And if you're not familiar with it, to introduce yourself to it. There's chapter 24 of Michael's book, which he's been reading from the book every day, and we haven't gotten there. But chapter 24 is where Michael walks the character Richard through doing a worksheet. And the worksheet that they use in the book, of course, is one of the first ones because this was back in like 96 when Michael wrote the book. And that worksheet is still on the website, so you can download the original worksheet. You can download examples of the worksheet, and so that's out there. You know, we don't announce that a lot, so that is a tool for people who aren't familiar with the worksheet to introduce themselves, and like I said, there's examples there that they can look at of how to fill out that worksheet. And the app is on your phone for free. So there's just lots of information, lots of things to put to work in your life to change your life. And so Michael is still not with us yet, but I've got Aria today. We didn't know that we were going to have her, so that we're blessed. Okay. So anyway, Michael's now with us, so welcome, Michael. Apologies for being sidetracked there. She was asking me a question.
Oh, that's cool. So, yes, we are blessed to have Aria Brain here. We weren't expecting to have her this week, so sweet space. And, do you want to talk about the healing crisis you went through last night? It was kind of like our extended weekend, through one of the things that we often watch. In the evenings, there's a really sweet series on Netflix called Call the Midwife. And it's a true story, and it basically portrays life in a kind of a rough, lower class neighborhood in North London, and a convent whose nuns and nurses are there to support women in birth, and so it's called the midwives. And they basically portray just about every trauma you can imagine. And last night's show was a very powerful portrayal of a particular trauma. And Jeannie, maybe I'll turn it over to you if that feels appropriate.
Sure. And it really snuck up on me. I mean, I was okay watching the show, and it was this young woman, and she had a baby that was like 8 months old, and she was constantly in a panic. Every time the baby would break out in a rash or run a fever or whatever, and she'd run to the doctor, and, you know, the baby would be fine. It'd just be teething or just a regular, you know, diaper rash or something. And then you find out that what happened was 2-3 years before, she had a baby that was 8 months old that just died during the night in its sleep. And so she was in this huge panic that, you know, it was coming up on the anniversary of that happening, and here she had another 8-month-old, and all the trauma that she was going through, being able to deal with that. And I was fine watching it until towards the end of the movie, one of the midwives really showed compassion for her. And when love is present,
sweetie,
then anything less can come up and be dealt with. And I've lost 2 babies in my lifetime. And that came up so strongly. And one of the things they did on the show was the midwife brought her a rose bush. and they had migrated over, and so they weren't British citizens or whatever, and they couldn't get to where the baby was buried, and so she brought a rose bush and said, plant this, and the midwife shared an experience where she lost someone, and her brother sent her a clipping off of a rose bush that he had there where their parents were buried. And so since she couldn't be there, this was kind of a symbolic gesture that she could still participate in being in area or the presence of where they were buried. And so she shared that with this couple, and she gave them a rose bush. And the healing that happened at the end of it, and the wife was actually able to put the baby into a bed and instead of keeping it right beside of her all night, and she was able to just move past that trauma. And she actually took some of the things that she had bought for the first child and put them beside the rose bush and was able to let it go and move into the light. And so
holding the space for you,
with
sweetie.
Michael, with Michael holding the space and us discussing it and processing it, and I came to such a peace and came to the decision to buy a rose bush, but I'm going to get one that doesn't have thorns on it if I can find one, because of Ari, I prefer to keep her safe. And so I started looking online and found one that was actually a 2-color rose. And I said, well, that would represent both babies. And so I'm going to plant it, and it's a trailing rose bush. So I'm going to put up a trellis and let it climb. And so anyway, I came to a real peace about it. It was such a shock, though, watching this program, and just in the last 10 minutes of the show or whatever, when the trauma was revealed and then love was present by one of the midwives, it was just like opened the gate for me. So, yeah, that was a powerful process and totally unexpected last night. I said, I feel like I have been in complete process since the weekend. I mean, it's just continual. And the ability, I said, the openness, between Michael and I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you think, everything's perfect. You're a good couple. Yeah, you have issues every now and then, but I mean, just the depth that we have gone to, and something had happened yesterday afternoon, and I really felt, I guess, inadequate. And when that came up, I went in and sat down beside Michael, and we just talked about it and processed it right there. And I said, that wouldn't have happened in the past. It's kind of like at first I said I was, I don't even remember what term I used, that I was vulnerable or something. Whereas before it'd be like, I'm strong, I can handle this, push this down, and just being open and willing to move through the traumas and tragedies of my past and be able to process them almost immediately. And, you can tell, I'm still shedding tears. There's still another layer. But it's been phenomenal. And being able to just sit and talk, and there's just such a closeness and a connection between Michael and I. I mean, it was just a super powerful weekend, and it just keeps on going, keeps on giving.
For sure. And just looking at the idea that we can and create circumstances that come and hit us upside the head, or in this age of media, if we use it consciously, it can be a wonderful stimulus and support. I mean, literally, the energy, I had thought of Jeannie's past and having lost 2 babies, but there was no reaction to it up until just that last few minutes. And the scene that opened the space was as this woman who was actually kind of had been up to that point in the film, been presented as kind of an old busybody, interfering, kind of tough old broad. And as she went into this space of compassion. It's just so powerful what we can do with and for each other. And it's opening something for me right now that was unexpected. So here we go. We're both in this space, and I think one of the things Jeannie had said last night when she spoke about that was, in the past I wouldn't have spoken about that. And if you remember, we shared yesterday that the 5 measures that Jeannie was told she was going to go through, one of them was clearly trust, and that was what this past weekend was about. And so it is the gift that keeps on giving. And even through something like, and I suggest that, this particular film series, it's like, I think they ran for 10 years, they're still running, but it's the closest of anything that I've seen that addresses, tough issues all the way through. And yet it's done where the overriding energy is that of Rachma. I don't know who's behind it, where they got it from, put it together, but that's the overriding voice of the series. Again, it's called Call the Midwife. So it might be something you might want to check out and breathe and keep worksheets handy and let it move what it moves for you. And, ultimately, if we are going to be truly, fully functional humans, what we're going to have to do is remove every restriction on the flow of love that we have ever put into our structures. And for me, it gets clearer and clearer all the time that every unresolved trauma, a restriction in the flow of love that we're designed to live in, that literally they're pathways that active present love is designed to move in us and through us continuously. And we've been trained by the world, when something we call traumatic occurs, that we shut those things down. And if we never go back and visit them and never work through them and open those pathways back up, then we create restrictions for love, which means we create restrictions of life. And when you realize that life is love flowing through a cell, when that presence of love is restricted in its flow and replaced by trauma, we literally shorten our lives. We literally restrict our lives. And so, you remember I shared a few weeks ago a piece of guidance that I was given was to ask that all the pathways for love be opened in me. I invite you to join in that particular request of asking that every pathway, wherever in your structure, that has been closed down through genetic interference or genetic memories or experiences, family system experiences, cultural experiences, thought disorders, and it's usually a thought disorder that creates that resistance and locks us into another state. If you go back to the Aramaic language, the word Satan has nothing to do with the dude with the red suit, a tail, and a pitchfork that's out to get you. And no, Satan is not going to get you. There's no such entity that exists in the world. But in the Aramaic, they understood exactly what Satan was and meant. And in Aramaic, it means the resistor, one who misleads. And Jeannie, I think this passage through trust has been a really important one for both of us, this measure, and that ultimately we come to recognize there is a power that flows through us that only has our best interests at heart, whatever happens in our world. And if we buy into the thought disorders of the world, then we step into that resistance and we become misled by the content in the mind of the so-called body from the past, and that quite literally is Satan, the resistor, one who misleads. And as we have the brain cells for and understand truly, we have the opportunity to move through those things and still maintain that connectedness and that flow of love with whatever happens in our worlds. And when you realize that, then, are you better off being locked in trauma over what you call a traumatic experience, or are you better off being connected to love over a traumatic experience? It's a pretty simple question, and the answer is pretty obvious. So we're here to support the undoing of all thought disorders and the restoration to the qualities of mind energy that we are designed for as human beings. And as we live our lives, because of the universal law of resonance, and that resonance creates motion, anything and everything in our environment that is not in support of love, that matches anything in us that is unlike love, that's going to be drawn to us. And if we live, we just finished doing the chapter in the book on projection and externalization. If we live in denial, dissociation, projection, this is somebody else's fault, then we miss out on the opportunity to clean up our own multi-generational database called the body-mind unit. And we're here to create support for cleaning up every thought disorder and returning to the ability to maintain the flow and the presence of active love through us, whatever the environment is showing us. Any other thoughts for you, sweetie?
No. It's such a sweet space to be in that trust and to feel open to, process immediately when something comes up. And, I'm really grateful and thankful. And thank you for asking me 17 years ago to come on this journey with you.
We are blessed. Well, let's turn to the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? We've just finished chapter 8 on what is projection and externalization, and we're going to move into blockage of truth. So the conversation in this chapter starts out with me saying, Richard, many of the ideas in this work are difficult to accept at first because the brain cells must be built to see them. Have you noticed how much we resist being made aware of the truth of things we would rather hide from ourselves? Most people can think of many examples in their lives when they've tried to point out what someone was in denial about and did not want to hear. Does it sometimes seem unbelievable how difficult it is for a person to see what to others is so obvious? This dynamic is called blockage of truth. If you pretend your life is a responsibility of others and that you have nothing to do with creating the painful emotions and repetitious conflicts in your life, you tell yourself a disempowering lie, and in so doing, hide the truth from yourself. Many things influence our view of life and relationships, often without our awareness. Family patterns, parental messages, blame, projection, old behavior patterns, blockage of truth, and false forgiveness all play a part in how we interact with each other. Relationships don't die, they are killed by unconsciously driven behaviors. Let's look at how some of these dynamics play out in a typical conflict. And notice how predictable the results are when people act out of their old patterns, refuse to look at themselves and forgive as to each other. And so we're going to explore over the next several days this concept of blockage of truth. And we did talk about it last week, but again, building brain cells sometimes takes some repetition. In essence, here's how blockage of truth works. I tell myself a lie. I've been through this particular painful reality 87 different times with 42 different people, and I still say to myself, you made me mad. I tell myself a lie. Because the mind, in constructing its perception, must follow our verbal commands. When I say, you make me mad, my mind has to structure a construct, a picture world that is, one, false, and two, is following instructions given. So now my mind must develop and show me a construct where I am shown that you're the problem in my life. Now, again, if I've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people, obviously I've got something to do with what's happening in my life. But when I tell myself a lie and my mind backs the lie up with a construct that gives a visual representation of my lie, then I have to obviously hide the truth and the root of the truth from myself. That somehow I'm involved in this. And so when my mind shows me a lie and I call my lie the truth, I'm now in blockage of truth. You recall the Harvard research we've referred to many times over the years that shows that in a time frame where there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening in the brain, the maximum amount of data that goes into constructing our perception is 9 bits. So when my 9-bit mind, we call that metaphorically, shows me a lie and I call the lie truth, now there's no room in the 9-bit mind for the truth to get in. And I'm going to stay in blockage of truth. So if you've ever seen someone that, it's so obvious what's going on for them, and you say, well, what about when? And they're like, no, that never happened. I mean, you just stood there and watched it happen. That's the state of blockage of truth. There's a way to tell, an infallible sign that you're in blockage of truth about something. And that is that your perceptual constructs are based in some form of hostility or fear. Hostility and fear have no place in a truly human energy system. We're just not designed to have that energy within our structure. And so if I'll start to notice when there's hostility or fear, here's an opportunity for me to clean something up in my mind, I will advance my process and my work immeasurably. And of course, when hostility or fear show up, it's the action of forgiveness that literally removes the root of my pained constructs. When I remove the root of pained constructs, my mind can't construct a painful reality no matter what happens. You'll remember that in the ancient scriptures they says, perfect love casts out fear. These folks knew exactly how the mind works. There are 2 filters, one in the frontal lobes of the brain called Rachma, one in the back of the brain called Kuba. When those 2 filters were set, that's what they called perfect love. And remember, they said perfect love casts out fear. Your mind can't produce a fear-based reality if Rachma and Kuba are active. And the first order of business, according to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, when they said to him, what's most important in the law? What he said was, you must have Rachma. First order of business. You've got to keep that filter in the frontal lobes of your brain active in order to experience yourself as a human being, as love, the essence you were created as, and in order to keep your mind on track with love. So there are rules governing how to keep a human mind functional in you. If you don't know there are rules, if you don't believe there are rules, if you don't care about the rules, then you probably won't be functioning as a human being for very long. And you'll think that there's hostility or fear in you because of what somebody else does, rather than, oh, hostility and fear don't belong to me. If they come up, it's my opportunity to remove them. Now, if one lives in a world where, everything is plastered with hostility or fear, that sounds like a ridiculous conversation to have, because how could that even be possible? Well, let me just offer that it's possible. And we are here to incarnate the possible and to truly live as human beings. Stepping into the space where instead of blocking truth, we honor truth. We act from love in order to produce truth through our perceptual system. And it just changes everything. So we're here to support you in changing everything that you're ready to support, to be supported in changing. And we have many, many tools. Oftentimes people call and say, well, what do I do about this? Well, there are a whole variety of tools that we have, and you use every one of them to the skill level that you have with them. And you practice and you work with each one until they become usable, workable skills. You spend time building the brain cells. I talked to a friend of mine the other day who's a physician. I shared a couple of weeks ago. I was down at his office and watched him doing a procedure of harvesting stem cells and bone marrow. And to watch the skill level with which he did that was just amazing. And, unless you've got the brain cells to do that, you can't do that. Do you want to be a being that functions from active present love 24/7, 365? Then you're going to have to acquire the skills, the tools for doing that. And we're here to share those tools with you and support you in having that experience. So it's an honor to be in this conversation with you. We've got about 34 or so minutes left. So if you have a question for us, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show directly on your phone. And then if you have a question, a comment, something you'd like support with, if you just push 1, that raises hand in the control panel, and Jeannie will introduce you by your area code. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody out there in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet on the home front. So someone press 1, you're first in line. Any questions about anything, whether we've talked about it today or yesterday or last week or haven't talked about it at all? We have a hand up. Area code 541.
Great.
You are on the air.
Yes, this is Celinda.
Welcome, young lady.
Yes, I really treasure the conversation that you were just having with us. And I wanted to ask you something in reference to the filters of Huba and Rahma. Is there one that's primary to the other? Do they both get set in place simultaneously? I was just trying to understand that a little better.
Well, my offering would be that...
because the scripture only mentions Rahma in that particular context that you just read.
So my offering would be that they are interdependent and interrelated filters. Generally speaking, if one is active, the other one will be induced into activity. If one collapses, the other will tend to collapse pretty much simultaneously. And if you look at Yeshua's words, when they asked him what's most important in all this that you're teaching us, in order to have a human life, what are the rules? What are the laws for being human? And he said the first one was have Rahma. So my offering or my take is that the first order of business is to keep that frontal lobe connected to love, and that's automatically going to bring into activity Kuba. And usually when I'm setting the filters, I'll ask for support in setting both of the filters.
Thank you so much, because I was wondering about that frontal lobe and the angel brain and how I had heard once in my energy work with educational kinesiology that both brains, both hemispheres have access to spirit, but that usually the left hemisphere, or whatever would be that hemisphere in this person, will block anything that doesn't involve the senses. Does that kind of resonate with what you're saying?
Well, I'm not sure that it's going to block anything that resonates the senses. My take would be that it's just going to operate more wholly, more fully.
Right.
If those
so
filters are the active
limiting,
filters.
Right. So it has to allow Rahma as its filter in order to open the way for spirit to come through our structure or our antenna.
That would be my best understanding, yes. And it's
good.
the gateway.
Go ahead.
It's the gateway into which love enters into our forms. So it's both a filter that allows only intentions that are keyed to love to be active in the frontal lobes of the brain, and gives access or entryway for the presence of love in our forms. If that's shut down, then the awareness of who we are as love tends to be blocked, and we become locked into either the hostility or the fear mode.
Yes, thank you, because I'm wrestling with my Hydra right now in every worksheet I do, so I appreciate that information.
Sweet.
Good grounding.
Was there any support we can give you on the Hydra that you're working on?
I have to share with you, it was really sweet. It took me a lot of courage to tell you and Jeannie that I wasn't going to continue with the Course in Miracles. A lot of courage. And what came up for me when I did a worksheet, because Magda busted me, bless her heart, as she noticed the need for approval in my languaging. And so I went and did a worksheet, and it's just part of my Hydra with my primary power person issue, and it reflects out into everything in my life, including my relationship with Larry, and including my relationship with my community and the world. And so I'm looking at that, and I really appreciate your clarification. I may ask again, because you know how the mind has to grow the brain cells, but I certainly appreciate what you've just said.
Yeah, and my question would be, can you remember some time where your brain interpreted myself or Jeannie saying something about the Course in Miracles as something you're supposed to do? Because it's never anything that I've ever said to anyone.
I think it came from within myself, as part of that whole authority, you know, either being driven by authority or being controlled by authority, that it gets transferred to every issue where authority is involved. And I have to share with you, when I was doing your worksheet last night in the evening, I kept falling asleep on number 8. And I kept falling asleep, and when I went back to look at it this morning, because I realized I hadn't set my goal for it, my new goal, these words weren't even in my conscious mind at all. Like, I had no clue what this message was. It was so foreign. I had to sit there in quietness for some possibilities to rise up to me what this meant. And what the possibility was at this moment for me is that, Celinda, you have to stop. You don't have to do anything. This is your opportunity to wake up and stop giving your power away to someone or something out there who knows more than you, who has more truth than you, or whatever. It's part, I think, of thinking that we're powerless, so we've got to get it from out there. And I understand that from my traditional evangelical background and also my family dynamics. And so it's very sweet and freeing to see that coming up.
Well, delighted to be on the team. You remind me of a thing that happened, and this goes back probably close to 40 years ago. I was up in Toronto, Canada, teaching, and we were doing a mind shifter with the group. I was doing the workshop on creating consciously, and we were doing a mind shifter around the idea of abundance with the group. And I happened to ask the group we went through everybody and had them read the mind shifter. And there was a woman there, I don't know, maybe in her 30s or so. And I asked her to read the mind shifter. I don't remember exactly what the words were right now. But when she read it, she inserted, like she had the piece of paper in her hand looking at it, and she inserted 3 or 4 words that weren't there. And so I asked her to read it again. Since she read it again and inserted the same words, I asked her to point to the words on the page as she read them. And she pointed to the 3 or 4 words that were not on the page, but she saw them. I mean, she pointed to them as she read them. And it just, it has me think of David Bohm, where he talks about the mind's ability to trick us is just endless in what we can put into our brain's image of anything. So, nice catch, good work.
Right,
holding the space.
And here my subconscious took care of it and inserted words that I needed to ponder and be still over. I love it.
A pretty awesome process, isn't it? All right. Anything else on your mind for today?
No, I think that's complete, but I really appreciate everyone and Magda for busting me yesterday. That was pretty cool. And I knew it.
Did you say Magda for supporting you yesterday?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
She's my support person, and it's delightful. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, having a partner, a support partner, is really powerful, and it's something we set up in the intensives. But everybody, find someone to be an accountability partner with you. You don't have to be in the intensive to do that, and just have someone who's there. If you make a commitment to do X amount of work a day, then at the end of the day, your agreement is to text them, just finish my last worksheet, or did my mind shifter, or set the commitment to myself, or whatever it is. And having that accountability partner can be a powerful support in healing. So cool.
Perfect.
Well, you have a
and
blessed day. Tell Larry I said hello.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. One short question that is in relation to the intensive. Since we're a support group, are we allowed to have a worksheet and contact list of the present members of the intensive, or is that, I just want clarity on that, or is that for the intensive members only?
Yeah, no, I think Jeannie has sent the contact list out already.
Yeah, I thought I did. I will resend it to you. And thank you for the Irish music concert thing. We haven't watched it yet. We'll try to catch that tonight.
Yes, and I didn't know if you had access to Carolyn Mace's work or were even interested in her, but when you said about the upside down tree of life, I just happened to open the book and there it was, and I just thought I would share that with you. Thank you.
Sweet.
Okay, take care.
All right, young lady.
And have fun. And have fun while you're doing that.
Joy.
Bye-bye.
All right. Blessings. All right. Well, we've got about 20 minutes left, so we've still got lots of room for conversation. How can we support you? What's on your mind? If you're out there in this land, push 1. We'll be having a conversation, and we would love to. Because, well, we're here to support you, but also we find that as we support you, we get support. You know, every conversation opens another aspect of healing and deeper understanding. Go for it, Jeannie.
610, I think, is the Susan.
Oh, great. Hey there, young lady.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to bring up what you brought up for me. I had another question that's, the other one is too big. I have to get ready. But I had a question. I had a question from yesterday. You said the Eloi, Eloi thing that Jesus says on the cross. You said what he really meant. I didn't write it down. It's gone out of my brain. Could you say it again?
Okay, sure. I'll tell you what. Let me just go back. I will send you a copy of it, and I'd actually just sent it to someone just the other day. But Eli, lama sabachthani, and I always find it interesting when I talk about that because Western scholarship says it's Greek, it was written in Greek, but here's a place where in the Greek text they say, we left this in the original Aramaic. It's like, okay, so if the original was Aramaic, then it was Aramaic. Like, what are you talking about? It's all Greek to Yeshua. Anyway, so the translation that the Greeks give it is, my God, a very formal, here's God hanging on a cross, according to most of Christianity, saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?
Yeah.
And in Aramaic, it's much closer to a very intimate greeting to one's father. If you listen to the Greeks' idea of the father, you've got dude who's created this horrible place that you're going to burn for eternity and blah, 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 and entry and going to get even and all sorts of things. But when you listen to Yeshua, he talks about his father. And so in Aramaic, Eli would be more like Papa, and said with excitement, not dejection, for this you set me aside. And so here's Yeshua. My take is that he is understanding the depth of what his purpose is in that circumstance. He's just like had his big opening. And I had shared that in the context of one of the Still Point sessions that Jeannie and I were doing this weekend, where that came to me twice, and it was at points where, both Jeannie and I were in process. We'd actually switched around. I was working on her, she was working on me, and then there came a point where we're both just in it. And that phrase was given to me twice, and the context of it for me was almost, let me just tap in a little deeper here. It's like, it was almost like a state of receptivity, and thank you, I got what my purpose is. I got it. I realized, this is what you reserved me for. And actually at one point the word was preserved me for.
Wow.
And that was at a point where once when that was repeated to me, that was a point where I just said, we were both very actively processing. And I said to Jeannie, let's just slow down a bit. Let's just take a breath and let's be just be in the enjoyment of this energy that we're being fed with right now. And it was just, pure delight, bliss, nirvana, whatever word the world wants to use. None of those words even starts to capture it, but it was just physiological, being physiologically supported by the pure presence of love.
Mm.
So for me, it was just like, I can take a breath now. I can let go and just be with it.
Wonderful.
And what comes to mind, in our last intensive session, Magda was doing some processing, and I played a song for her that the words go, and it just fit very well in that state, was, "You can relax now. Come on and open your eyes. See clearly now, I am with you. You are the love of my life.
Mm.
You had a dream. You misunderstood.
Yeah.
Time to let go of the dream. Oh, this is life. I got it. And my whole structure's tingling right now as I try and tap into that energy again. So I pass the tingle on to you.
Thanks. That's wonderful.
It is. And I'm just in the process of picking up I'm going to shut off. Piece of music I was playing in the background.
Michael, that is perfectly horrible.
Say again?
That's perfectly horrible. Nothing but static.
Yeah, it's not
really?
coming through clear at all.
Oh, okay. My apology. I tried. I'll send you a copy of it.
Okay. Thanks.
Bummer. Technology. What can I say?
Yeah.
So what else be on your mind, young lady?
Well, what's on my mind is I'm not sure I can go very far into it. But your and Jeannie's intimacy, emotional openness to each other is very moving to me and also scary because, and this is so weird, I used to think as a child that I could show my feelings to strangers freely. And that's one reason I've shown them on the radio show. Although you aren't strangers anymore, but you were safe. To show the kinds of feelings you were showing to each other within a long-term relationship has been a real roadblock for me. And I have had, this has nothing to do with Tim Bingham insofar as he is perfectly willing and open to have me be as emotional, crying, whatever. It isn't his issue at all. It's mine, and I know he's right there. But for me to get myself to the place where I feel safe enough to be open with someone that close to me is really hard. And there have been times when things have been so intense that I've done it, like busted through. But in general, my first 5 layers is to shut it down, shut it down, shut it down, keep it shut down, shut it down. And oddly enough, Ellen was on the show last week, on our Zoom call, and did a piece of work and cried. And the story she told got to me before my shields were up, and I cried. And Tim was sitting right beside me, and it didn't faze him at all, but I had to release resistance to allowing myself to show how I felt. Oddly, sometimes when I've seen a client in a private session and I've heard a story, I have felt moved to cry, even though I don't wail and bellow, but it will be obvious to the client that I'm in there with them and I'm feeling it with them. And whether that's a good professional thing or not, Dr. Kim seems to think that's perfectly all right, as long as you don't hijack the whole show and say, well, when I was 5, this happened to me. I don't do that at all. I'm with them, but often with feelings. It's just causes this is denial the way I'm saying it, my heart just tightens up when I hear that you have achieved that openness that I haven't been able to achieve except for little moments where it's happened accidentally. But for Jeannie to say, I feel vulnerable, and you to stay there, which Tim Bingham would do. This is my stuff. For Jeannie to say, I feel vulnerable, and you stay with her, and she stays with herself enough to let that happen. And Jeannie, from what you've said, you have had the kind of treatment in your life where you might have shut down and not dared ever to be open to anyone ever, and you're doing it, and it's gorgeous to me, and I'm jealous, and I want that, and I realize that's the next thing to be doing. That's all. Got to do some work on that.
Well, and I think that one of the reasons for sharing the messages that the processes we're going through is to extend them to others. And so it sounds like the measure that you're ready to receive modeling for and to go through is that of trust. And when I think about some of the early experiences you've shared with me, I understand why there'd be hesitancy and resistance to that. And it sounds like that's your next measure to go through.
I love that word,
trust
measure.
level. I do
it
too.
is.
I think it was awesome. And it feels like something that just this latest depth of processing for Jeannie and I have just, it's like we've both gone to a whole, such a totally different place from the past that it's monumental. And
knowing how frightened Jeannie was when you were gone, she had the question in her mind, has Michael left? Is this an abandonment thing? I hope it's okay. I mentioned that because Jeannie and I talked about it just on the phone at one point, but the fact that she could have had that thought and you could come home and find this new depth when you got home, it's just, I have to breathe through it. It's so good.
That was one of the things we actually processed over the weekend as well, was, how I could even think that.
Yeah,
well,
when I was
I
in Florida,
understand how
she
you
said,
could
"Are
think
you
that.
moving to Florida, Michael?" It's like, what? What could even possess you to think such a thought? But it was there, and so
Right.
and it opened the question, opened a whole new space for us for commitment.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. Yeah, well, when they say when Jesus was in the garden sweating blood, this is very grandiose of me to compare it, but it feels like an issue of sweating blood to face this.
yeah, I understand. That's the healing process. We've said it over and over, and I think you're just saying it on a new level, a new depth of it's not Dr. Feelgood. I mean, to face those things when you're the early adopter, you're the first one in the family system to face something that's been that traumatic. It's pretty heavy duty stuff. But here's my offering: is each new depth that you go to makes every other step easier.
Yeah. And I know my environment. I know in my head I'm safe. I just don't know it all the way down into my guts.
Right. Yeah. And it's about rewiring the instrument. Say again?
Yeah. Tim has proven it. I mean, he's proven that I'm safe, but I don't trust it. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's this world that we call generated perceptual constructs that we use to take the place of the world of actuality. And this sounds like one of the opportunities for you to just jump in on a new level of collapsing that construct in your mind so that you can make room for actuality to come in.
I'm not sure how to do that, but I imagine just doing worksheets on it, it'll probably loosen the soil and it might become plain. Any suggestions?
Absolutely, yes. Go back to the first day, the first radio show of the archives, and start listening. And the only thing I'll talk about for 10 years, 5 hours a week, will be exactly the answer to that question.
All of the above, in other words.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Every minute of it. And, there are sensitive periods where we're ready for one piece of the puzzle and not another. And when we add all of those up, that's what creates the movement and the progress. And just remember to be gentle with yourself as you're doing it.
Right.
Be there for yourself, because oftentimes the betrayal that seems like it's going to have to be there is the moment where we abandoned ourselves.
Oh, yeah. There's that Zen story of a man who used to beat his dog, and then the dog picked up the rope and beat himself with it. And the Zen master said, I've told this before on the show, but the Zen master said, oh, I don't need that rope anymore. You're doing my work yourself. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure my mother would just be horrified that one of the results of what happened when we were small resulted in this kind of restriction. She wouldn't want that.
And she'd probably be delighted to see you opening it because she carried the same rope.
Oh, she did. She
for
did.
herself.
I saw her cry once, and she hid and was so ashamed. Once. And she wasn't even full out crying. It was just she couldn't handle it. And so there were 4 tears. And that was it. She didn't model crying at all because she didn't feel safe, obviously. So anyway, yeah, it's old stuff. Old.
Well, maybe a good tool to use would be to write her a letter about how safe it is now. Explain it to her.
Oh, what a lovely idea.
So she can understand it. Yeah. Give her that gift.
And I don't have to get there myself before I write the letter.
You'll get there yourself as you write the letter.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, well, we're down to the last minute, and so the show is going to cut us off, so I'm just going to say thank you for these conversations, and everybody have the best year yet of your eternal life. Thank you, young lady. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings.